Today, hundreds are arrested as an immigration raid halts a Hyundai battery plant in Georgia. The US sends stealth jets to the Caribbean as tensions rise with Venezuela. Trump says he's backing RFK Jr. despite the health secretary's grilling from both parties. Investors look for more aggressive US rate cuts after weak jobs data. And the NFL is back, kicking off a packed global calendar of sports. It's Saturday, September 6th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Tara Oakes in Liverpool.
Feedback from Hyundai. I would say that they were illegal aliens and ICE was just doing its job. But I know nothing.
US President Donald Trump, after an immigration raid on Hyundai's battery plant in Georgia, saw hundreds of workers detained. Homeland Security says it's their largest single-site operation ever, and that most of those detained are South Koreans, who were barred from working in the US after crossing the border illegally or overstaying their visas. The raid stopped work on a plant that's part of Hyundai's $12 billion US investment and is straining ties with Seoul. South Korean Foreign Ministry spokesman Lee Jae-woong condemning the raid, warning US enforcement must not violate the rights of its citizens or investors. Hyundai says none of the workers were directly employed by the company. The US is sending 10 stealth fighter jets to the Caribbean, ramping up military pressure on Venezuela. The move follows a deadly strike on a Venezuelan boat the US claims was carrying drugs. CNN says President Trump is weighing options for further strikes, including potentially attacking suspected drug cartels inside the country.
Estados Unidos de Norteamérica debe abandonar su plan de un cambio de régimen violento en Venezuela.
Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro has warned Washington to abandon any plans of regime change and to respect the country's sovereignty. Trump says he's not pushing for regime change in Venezuela, but he's not backing down on targeting boats he claims are carrying drugs.
And when I see boats coming in, like loaded up the other day with all sorts of drugs, probably fentanyl mostly, but all sorts of drugs, and we're going to take them out.
US Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. plans to announce that Tylenol use during pregnancy is potentially linked to autism. That's according to a Wall Street Journal report citing people familiar with the matter. Shares in Tylenol maker Kenvue fell 14% on the news, with the company stating it believes there's no causal link between taking the popular over-the-counter pain medication during pregnancy and autism. The Department of Health and Human Services says claims about the report's contents are speculation until it's officially released. Now, Kennedy got a grilling from both parties in Congress this week, but President Trump says he's standing by Kennedy.
But if you look at what's going on in the world with health, and look at this country also with regard to health, I like the fact that he's different, okay?
White House reporter Jeff Mason says the two may not share all the same views, but they are still close.
The president and RFK Jr. speak regularly, according to a White House official I spoke to for this story. I can't say how often they talk specifically about vaccines, but the president said on Friday in the Oval Office, when asked about the moves in Florida, that you have to be careful about saying people don't need to be vaccinated. But as the White House official told me, President Trump trusts Bobby Kennedy's judgment. And I think it's important to see how much leeway the president is giving Secretary Kennedy. He's not putting any guardrails around the secretary as he implements this vision for the public health system and for vaccines generally. I did speak to one analyst who made a point of saying President Trump may be supportive, but he also has a skill for distancing himself from people if they do something to embarrass him.
This weekend, the energy in American sports is electric. The NFL is back, And for fans, it feels like the wait has been forever. But it's not just football lighting up the calendar, as it's gearing up to be a truly global weekend of sport. Our global sports editor, Ocean Shine, brings you Inside Track, your essential guide to the weekend in sport, and talks us through some of the big moments.
It's a big global weekend of sport, but there is a certain sort of frisson about America, primarily because it's the return of the NFL. It seems to have been a long off-season, and we've now got 272 regular season games stretching out ahead of us. People love the NFL, and especially having been starved of it since Super Bowl, it's going to be the number one ticket in town. You got Aaron Rodgers, one of the greats. He's facing the Jets, having left there after just 2 pretty unsatisfactory seasons in New York. Didn't go well for him. And he's facing Justin Fields, who's now tasked with reviving Jets greatness. Fields was in Pittsburgh last year, so you've got a really interesting sort of clash there.
And just a quick shout out for those like me whose interest in the NFL is largely Taylor Swift related.
We're still not 100% sure if Taylor Swift is going to show up at the NFL, but she's been a pretty regular Chiefs fan. Obviously just got engaged. Her fiancé will be playing in a sport that does ceremony, pizzazz, showbiz better than any other sport. That alone would make it a super weekend in the States. But of course, we've got the US Open final weekend, and that's shaping up to be a real humdinger. You've got Amanda Anisimova against Ania Sabalenka in the women's final. And Anisimova, of course, is born in New Jersey, just down the road from Flushing Meadow. She had a terrible Wimbledon, lost 6-love, 6-love in the final, which was just horrific for her. So this is a classic redemption tale, which I'm sure the whole of New York and the whole of the US is going to be behind her. They've brought out cocktail especially for the US Open. It's got a honey juice cocktail, which is vodka, raspberry, little honey balls shaped like tennis balls. Donald Trump himself is going to show up at the final in New York. So that's going to bring its own special spice to the occasion.
Here's what's going on beyond America.
I'm looking at the Women's Rugby World Cup. We've got South Africa playing France, which is going to be a real test to see exactly how far they've come. They've already beaten a top 10 country for the first time ever. They've reached their first ever World Cup quarterfinal. And that's really galvanized a country where apartheid is still casting a shadow. But the South African women's team is drawn from all over the country, and the entire nation's got behind them. So that'll be a really feel-good story and fascinating to see how they've come on the pitch.
The Fed is very likely to start cutting interest rates in a couple of weeks and keep cutting them through the end of the year to keep the labor market from getting any worse than what it is now.
Our economics reporter Anne Sophia there after news that the US jobs market is hitting stall speed. August data shows the unemployment rate has jumped to 4.3%, the highest in almost 4 years. The Labour Department says the economy actually lost jobs in June for the first time since 2020. And says all that's likely to push the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates this month.
You can't ignore the ongoing political pressure on the Fed. From Trump, he's been demanding lower rates. It looks like he's about to get them. They won't answer his desire to have a very large rate cut. And he's trying to put more control in the Fed. He has tried to fire one of the Fed governors, which is a really unprecedented move. That is currently an issue for the courts to decide. And he is also nominating someone who very much holds his view to fill an open seat on the board. He's hoping to get him in there by September so he can vote on this next policy meeting. So there's a lot going on there that is sort of way beyond what's going on in the actual labor market that could affect and probably will affect what the Fed does.
Today, our recommendation to you is to listen to our latest episode of On Assignment podcast. This week's is called Where's the Beef?
I'm standing outside of Mr. Beef. It's a restaurant in Chicago's River North neighborhood. Now, it's a pretty unassuming, narrow brick building, but you might know it as the location and inspiration for the hit TV series The Bear. We talk to our reporters who've been across North America talking to cattlemen and experts to understand what's going on in the cattle industry. We'll travel to Chiapas, Mexico to meet ranchers who are combating screwworm, an insect that's creeping northward.
And visit the plains of Texas as ranchers there brace for the pest that's threatening to upend the cattle industry here in the U.S.
We'll put a link in the description and you can listen to On Assignment wherever you get your podcasts. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. And if you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.